In the 13th century BC, after becoming the pharaoh of Egypt, Rameses II had one primary ambition: to reclaim the region of Kadesh from the Hittites, a territory that had once belonged to his empire during his father's reign. Driven by a desire to restore his honor and the prestige of the Egyptian nation, Rameses II amassed a huge army to confront the Hittites and conquer Kadesh. At the same time, the Hittites, who had forged an empire in Asia Minor, expanded their influence in the Middle East, conquering Amurru and Kadesh and maintaining control over these regions, which were crucial for their empire. The Hittite ruler Muwatalli, not wanting to lose these important cities, assembled an army to confront the Egyptians on the soil of Kadesh. Pharaoh Rameses assembled an army of 12,000 infantry and 4,000 war chariots. The advantage of the Egyptian chariots was their swift mobility on the battlefield. The kingdom of Amurru, which was a vassal to the Hittites, changed sides and joined the Egyptians with their forces. Hittite King Muwatalli also assembled an army, comprising 15,000 infantry and 10,000 chariots. Compared to the Egyptian chariots, the Hittite chariots were heavy and slow-moving, but could carry 3 men with full armor and weapons, making them formidable on the battlefield. To ease the mobilization of his armies, Rameses divided his forces into 4 divisions and named them after Egyptian gods: Amun, Re, Set, and Ptah. He led the Amun division to Kadesh himself. On the way to Kadesh, Pharaoh Rameses II was informed by nomads that the ruler of the Hittites had not yet arrived at Kadesh and was still in Aleppo. Believing this information to be valuable, the pharaoh immediately marched quickly to Kadesh, hoping to arrive before the Hittite king, without waiting for his remaining forces to join him. When Rameses arrived at Kadesh, he sent scouts to the region. One of the scouts returned with 2 captives who were revealed to be Hittite spies. The poem that describes the triumph of Rameses depicts the scene like this. When they had been brought before Pharaoh, His Majesty asked, "Who are you?" They replied, "We belong to the king of Hatti. He has sent us to spy on you." Then His Majesty said to them, "Where is he, the enemy from Hatti? I had heard that he was in the land of Aleppo." They of Tunip replied to His Majesty, "Lo, the king of Hatti has already arrived, together with the many countries who are supporting him. They are armed with their infantry and their chariots. They have their weapons of war at the ready. They are more numerous than the grains of sand on the beach. Behold, they stand equipped and ready for battle behind the old city of Kadesh." Then Rameses realized that the information he had received was falsely fabricated by the Hittite king. He immediately sent messengers to the king of Amurru and the remaining forces who were still marching. At the same time, the Hittite king, seeing the arrival of the Egyptian forces, sent his 4,000 chariots to counter the Egyptians. When the Hittite chariots reached the river, the Egyptian Re division was still marching to join the pharaoh. The Hittite chariots charged the Egyptians like a swift wind in the desert. The Re division, almost completely unaware and caught off guard by the sudden attack, was left undefended. Many were killed in the clash of chariots, and many fled the battlefield. Some of the chariots that escaped the carnage managed to reach the Egyptian camp and join the pharaoh. With the Hittites now destroying the entire Re division, they marched toward the Egyptian king. Rameses, with his Amun division, defended against the chariot attack for a while but soon started to crumble. Overconfident, the Hittites, seeing they were winning the battle, abandoned their chariots and began to plunder, which made the momentum of their chariot attack fade. Seeing this, the Egyptians counterattacked. The pharaoh, desperate to save his life, called upon his god Amun and led the remaining chariots to attack the Hittites from behind. The Hittites, now seeing they were encircled, started to flee the battlefield. Rameses, with full fury, pursued them. Then the Hittite king Muwatalli saw his chariots retreating from the battlefield. He led his remaining chariot force to the Egyptian camp. Fortunately for the Egyptians, the king of Amurru arrived with his forces just in time. Rameses also returned with his chariots, and the Ptah division appeared on the horizon. Fearing an encirclement of his chariot force, the Hittite king abandoned the battle and retreated to his camp. Pharaoh Rameses proclaimed the Battle of Kadesh as a triumph for him and depicted the battle in many temples of Old Egypt. In reality, much of his army was killed or had fled from the battlefield, and he was not in a position to continue the war and return to Egypt. The Hittite king also lost many of his chariot forces. Although his infantry remained intact, he did not want to continue the war and did not pursue the Egyptians. Amurru and Kadesh remained in the hands of the Hittites, and the tension between the two empires continued for a long time. Eventually, Hattusili, the Hittite king, and Rameses II concluded a peace treaty between their kingdoms. This peace treaty went down in history as the first recorded treaty between two countries in the known world.